have passed since Edward had taken his first passenger train. It had been Edward's first day out in a long time, and almost all the engines had given Edward their full support. Even Gordon. However, two did not. Sir Topham Hatt had brought 2 blue engines to the railway on trial, and they were quite displeased with Edward. They hadn't any names, only numbers, 98462 and 87546. These 2 engines had a great deal of comedy. They were both rude and cocky, to the point where even Gordon, for all his arrogance, grew hurt and impatient with them. However, unlike Gordon, neither engine ever seemed to know when enough was enough. You finally managed to make it out of the station, I see, cackled 98462 as Edward backed down into the sheds one night. Edward had just returned from his passenger run and was feeling quite proud of himself. What a useless engine you are, Edward, glowered 87546. I'm sure we'll be hearing plenty of complaints from the passengers tomorrow. Indeed, agreed 98462. You must have been running late all day, don't you know? The others gave the 2 engines a foul look, but Edward just smiled. Actually, we were right on time, he chuckled. I'm very happy to be useful again. Edward knew that as long as he did not let 98462's words bother him, the same for 87546, the engine would berate him for long. And soon enough, not getting any sort of reaction out of Edward, the 2 big blue bullies drifted off to sleep. Now, as Edward was now working regularly on passenger runs, Sir Topham Hatt had extended his timetable to have him run later into the evenings. This now meant that Gordon, Edward, and 98462 would be running commuter services all across the island. At first, Edward had his doubts, but, as usual, he was determined to work his hardest. Fortunately for him, he ran the loop line to only sub Gordon and 98462 at the big station. But unfortunately, as the weeks passed, he found his trains were getting heavier, or worse, he was getting older. The other engines had noticed this, and even Gordon offered to help. No, thank you, panted Edward. You have your own trains to manage. We can't upset Sir Topham Hatt's timetable. Little did Edward know, 98462 had heard everything and made a plan. One day, Edward arrived at the big station to collect his first passenger train. When he arrived, he saw that there were no coaches. Thomas must have woken up late again, he thought. He was just about to go and collect some more, when all of a sudden, 98462 came hooting and wheeshing into the platform with Edward's coaches. No need to fret, Edward, he said snootily. I'll be taking your train today. We mustn't upset Sir Topham Hatt's timetable. Ha 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 ha! Edward was upset, but he knew it was best he'd get on with his work. That evening, Edward was backing into his berth as 98462 was boasting loudly. We don't need Edward anymore, he grinned. I've proven I can handle 2 trains at once. Anyway, why keep Edward around when all he does is get in the way, 87546 agreed, but the other engines didn't. Edward helped build these rails that you run on, fumed Thomas. Without him, mind you, none of us could have a railway to work on. 98462 was having none of it. He's a thing of the past, he interjected. Us bigger tender engines are faster, stronger, and more up-to-date than that antiquated, miserable old relic over there. Edward finally gave up. He decided best to take a stand against 98462. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual to collect his coaches and make it to the platform before 98462. The yard was silent, and Edward felt sure he had beaten him. "And what do you think you're doing, Edward?" 98462 scowled. Edward tried to sound brave. "Collecting my coaches for my passenger train." "Is that so? You're nothing but slow and old. You're going to sit in the shed and wait to be sent away." Edward's heart sank. But not for long. "And just what do you think you're doing, 98462? bellowed Sir Topham Hatt. "Collecting my train, sir," 98462 replied, trying to look as innocent as he could. "From what I've just seen, that is partially the case, yes. Well, I would say more than partially, sir. However, I've heard passenger complaints saying they were taken to the wrong stations from your antics of fellow workers complaining about your treatment of others." 98462's face turned as white as a ghost. "My engines," Sir Topham Hatt went on, "work hard and help fellow engines. Let me remind you, 98462, I brought you here to work here on trial. And I'm still not sure if you could be trusted to work on my railway. But for now, I want you to go straight back to the sheds immediately." 98462 was so embarrassed he just couldn't muster up a response. So he sulked silently back to the sheds. Sir Topham Hatt turned to Edward. "You must understand this, Edward. You are one of my engines. You might not think so, but you have done wonders building this railway. If you have any troubles, you must come and see me right away. Understand?" "Yes, sir," replied Edward gratefully. He could see that he had heard everything. He looked across the yard and saw Gordon, Henry, and Thomas all smiling back. "Now then," finished Sir Topham Hatt, "you have a train to pull, Edward. Then after that, I want you to have a nice long rest." "Oh, thank you, sir," smiled Edward happily. As he set off, he felt his position on Sir Topham Hatt's railway was secure again, and had no more troubles with 98462 from that day on. As for 87546, well, I mustn't say any more, or I should spoil the next story.